The minimum wage versus the living wage debate poses a key question. What does it mean to actually receive a fair wage in modern society? Some people think that any full-time employment must earn them enough money to sustain them with the basics, while others feel that the government should not dictate the amount of wages to be paid, but rather the market should do this. Rather than attempt to establish one side of the argument right, the issue needs to be explored deeper. Looking at the data, definitions, and varying viewpoints helps people see the intricacy of the question. This question being, should the minimum wage be enough to live on, or is that an unrealistic expectation? Firstly, being able to know the difference between what a minimum and living wage is very important. The federal minimum wage in the US is $7.25 an hour. Per year, this would be roughly $15,000. This is below the federal poverty guideline that the government sets out for a single person. This begs the question of whether the minimum wage is actually serving its intended purpose. In contrast, a living wage is determined by using the current actual cost of living. Researchers at MIT write that a living wage is what one full-time worker must earn on an hourly basis to cover the cost of their family's minimum basic needs. A living wage, as opposed to minimum wage, which is established by law, is a reflection of the real cost of living, housing, food care, health care, and transportation. When we compare these two concepts, we can see a clear gap between them. Information from the living wage calculator shows that in most regions, a single adult needs well over $20 an hour to meet their basic needs. To further support this, the Economic Policy Institute states that the federal minimum wage is actually a poverty wage. This data points to one of the main disagreements of the debate. Even when a person works full-time, can he or she still afford their basic needs? With this gap in mind, people view this issue in very different ways. Some people believe that the minimum wage needs to be raised to reflect the cost of living more closely. From this perspective, full-time employees would be able to earn a decent salary that enables them to lead a normal and fulfilling life. Supporters tend to indicate that increased wages would help decrease poverty and enhance the general living standards. They see the living wage, minimum wage gap as an issue that must be resolved by implementing new policies. In contrast, others worry about the possible effects of increasing the minimum wage excessively. They claim that increased labor expenses might make companies shut down or cut on unemployment. Small businesses would take it the hardest. With such huge increases in wages, they may not be able to afford employees as they go to bigger companies. In this light, minimum wage is not necessarily intended to support a full life, but more to offer entry-level opportunities, particularly to to younger or less experienced employees. These issues imply that the wage increase does not have a straightforward solution, and there can be trade-offs with it. This debate becomes more interesting when you understand that when minimum wage laws were initially established, it was with living standards in mind. In the past, the aim was to make sure that employees were able to sustain a minimum standard of living. Yet, due to the rise in the cost of living with time, the value of the minimum wage has not risen accordingly. This creates an important question of whether the minimum wage has drifted away from its original purpose, or has the people's understanding of it changed. Rather than one side being clearer than the other, this debate encourages one to see deeper. Should a full-time job guarantee the ability to live independently? Is it the government that should decide that? Businesses? Maybe the people? It's important to prioritize job availability or higher wages, and most importantly, how do we define fairness in an economy where there is such a wide gap in costs and opportunities? In conclusion, the debate of minimum wage and living wage is not only based on numbers, but rather a matter of true value. It shows people think about their responsibilities and work, and some see their wages as a necessary step towards increasing wages as a necessary step towards fairness and security. Others view that the economy may incur consequences or side effects from this. The 2 points both present legitimate concerns as to why they are right, and to decide which is right, we must have an open mind towards this. It's important to hear others' opinions, look at the evidence, and think about your own values, rather than make decisions about what is right or wrong. By doing so, we not only become more informed about this debate, but also understand the type of society we want to create. And then I had my 3 questions. My first one was, if someone works full-time, should they be guaranteed the ability to afford basic living expenses? Or is that expectation unrealistic in a market-based economy? My second was, do you think raising the minimum wage would create more opportunities for workers, or could it unintentionally reduce job availability? And my third was, who should be most responsible for ensuring people earn a viable income, livable income, the government, employers, or individuals? And I also can talk about my poster. So this photo up here in the top left, it just talks about the gap between the minimum wage and living wage in different US states. Some examples on it, the difference in Michigan is $6.17. In Ohio, it's $5.23, and then in Pennsylvania, it's $9.16. And then for this, it just has some, like what the actual living wage would be for one adult who works. It should be around $31.50, but in reality, it's 17 in some states. And then down here, we have $7.25 as the federal minimum wage should be like 25. No, a living wage should be 25 an hour instead of 17.
Yes, thank you.